We have 4 panel members, and I would like to ask Alexandra Den Heijer to come forward first. Alexandra, here you are. Hello.
Hi. Nice meeting you again.
Hi. So, explain a little bit who you are.
Well, yeah. I'm associate professor at Delft University of Technology, and I've spent the last 10 years, I think, researching the university campus, and I've done my PhD defense on this 2 years ago, and since then I've been touring Europe because apparently all of the things you can write about university campus in the Netherlands apply also elsewhere. So indeed, that's why I'm here.
You studied the campus of TU Delft?
No, every Dutch campus. Every Dutch university funded my research for the past 10 years. And now I'm exploring Europe, so now I'm in Brussels more often to convince the European Commission to put this higher on the agenda.
So for the ones who don't live in Holland, the campus of Delft, which I experienced as a student, was a horrible experience for me. There was nothing about community. It was a long, long drive at the end of the city.
Yes, well, the building had some community to it, but indeed it was isolated. Well, I put a picture here of what I consider campus. It's not just the isolated model that I define as a campus, but also the collection of buildings. But you're right, a lot of universities, certainly since the increased numbers in the 1960s and 70s, have chosen the isolated model of a gated community, isolated from the city, even though the city has so much to bring.
What was the thinking then? Why was that?
Growth. Just extra square meters for every student. And still there's this tendency in new EU member states, even when they get the funding and there's more numbers, just expand. Even though we've heard before this morning and this afternoon that it's intensifying use builds communities. So there's an opportunity there, but also huge risk of a lot of universities going outside, even in successful cities like Munich.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a little presentation or?
Yeah, I'll just briefly, because of course, researching the campus, you're forced to do some definitions. Well, I've covered this one, but I think we have good cards in Europe because, well, traditionally the academic heritage is really, merged with the city. We have 400-year-old universities, not just in the Netherlands, but almost 1,000-year-old universities in Italy. And we still have the academic heritage that is part of it. So we have good cards for merging city and university, and I consider a campus not only the academic definition, the classrooms, the libraries, and the offices. That's a huge part of a campus, but increasingly also universities are looking at the residential functions, the retail and leisure, and not very, very important now, the incubators, the startups that come from those universities. And that's what innovation comes from, and that's why it's so important for the economic agenda of Europe 2020. And also increasingly universities are thinking that they should arrange all of this, even though there's no money, and then they're competing with the city, because the city already has all of these components, well, except the academic. So there's this risk that cities and university campuses are competing, are created separately. And I think, in some university towns in Europe, there's, the marriage was there for centuries. And in some university capitals, it's not a good marriage, and they compete. This refers to this slide I used. This was a year ago. This slide was used at this same conference class of 2020 in 2012. And this is actually the answer to the question that was just asked in the previous session. Why do students go abroad? And it's interesting to see that academic reputation comes number one, is of course mentioned as number one, but city and culture and country is mentioned as number two. Only 1% less of the population mentions that as an important driver. And I also think, if you look at the top 100, everybody wants to go to Harvard, get into Harvard, and then it's kind of regardless their facilities. You would study in the basement just to get in. Yeah. And that's of course goes for the top 100. But the base of the pyramid, which is all of the other universities in Europe, quality of place does matter. And that's what research also shows. Okay. I just have 2 more slides about the link to the European agenda, because this conference is called the New European Renaissance. So that's why I moved from you know, the Dutch situation and the campus to the European agenda. And I don't think we put the European Commission is putting enough effort in putting this higher on the agenda, because I think we're very dependent on the quality of space for some of the European goals. I think branding institutions, branding our countries, just came up the list with Vienna high on the top of the list. It's also something, you know, it's also a very important tourist town to go to. So students will become tourists more than ever. And I think Europe is also very dependent on the smart growth, the innovation, the startups, which are also related to the presence of a university. And of course, economic growth it's not just employment that the university brings by hiring us, you know, the professors, but every job that is created in the knowledge economy also generates 3 jobs in the services economy. So it's not just, it's the whole economic, you know, driver of the presence of a university that generates so much more. Okay. And again, that's about how high is that added value of the presence of a university is very hard to calculate.
What's the best university?
The best
Holland,
university in terms of ranking?
Yeah.
No,
in terms of your analysis and where you think that this community concept has developed best.
Well, the smaller towns are very dependent. Then it's clear that they're very dependent economically on like Wageningen and even Delft. I think Wageningen and Delft are examples of that. Also the municipality knows how inseparable these communities are. And sometimes in the world and even in Europe, it's the university towns that are facing problems already. You know, they're eager to make this marriage work.
Cities that go to major universities that go to major cities have an advantage just because of that, because the city is already there, the opportunities are already there. Yes,
but major cities also tend to, you know, think they can survive without that knowledge, that knowledge supplier, the university. And that's not true. Yeah, and no, because actually Amsterdam is, you know, she was here this morning, but Rotterdam has been ahead of the game because they're worried about knowledge workers leaving town. Yeah. And Amsterdam has been, you know, focusing on all kinds of other sectors and is kind of waking up now in terms of, this is very important.
Who wants to live in Rotterdam after your study?
That's right.
So
that's the irony, of course.
That's
the irony, of course.
And then you work harder. To get it.
But then the punchline is that students will become tourists. Okay. And I think the list of 10 cities that we saw, those are also attractive cities to visit as tourists. So I think these things align. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes. You're welcome.
And please be seated because you're going to be part of a
larger group.
Can I ask Bob Crompton to come forward? Where's Bob? There's Bob. Nice seat for you over here. Over the course of yesterday and today, I came to know you as a very practical guy, and so hearing all these stories about communities. First of all, tell us who you are, but secondly, hearing all these things about communities, can you translate it in very practical advices?
Sure. My name's Bob Crompton. I'm CEO of a company called Knightsbridge Student Housing, and we operate. In the last 3 years, we've acquired about 8,500 beds in 4 different countries. We operate to provide student housing in student cities, and it's quite interesting. I've just worked out that more than 70% of our rooms are booked directly through the university. They guarantee the rent, they guarantee the students, because we provide a service that the universities need. And we try and be part of a community, but it's clear to us that there's an acute housing shortage in every city. It's not just student housing, it's housing in general. And so we provide a service to the universities who need to house the students, and we provide a service to the cities because there's not enough housing stock for people who need to live there.
Just to be sure, you invest, you develop them, you build them, you invest them, and you operate them?
We build them, we operate them, we keep them forever.
Okay.
And we're a commercial company, we're here to make money. Okay. So I'm not shy of that.
Okay. And of course, the most important element of your concept is that universities basically rent your places, and they take away the risk of the lease.
Yeah, it's massively important, because when in the UK especially, universities they guarantee the first year students and the overseas students a place to live. They guarantee it, and it's part of their offer. So we help them provide that offer, and it's a real partnership for the city, for the university, and for the student.
And now there's a story about community building.
Yeah.
Do you listen to that? Does,
Yeah,
does it change your model?
Absolutely. Typically, our buildings are large.
Yeah.
So in one city, we've got a building with 1,300 students in it, but
Okay.
typically there'll be 400 students.
That's a city in itself.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
They're great parties there. It's a fantastic place. But
Okay. Yeah.
we do try and be part
That's
of
scary.
Yeah.
1,300 students
Yeah.
in one building.
And they're all undergraduates, and they're all about 19.
Okay, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's
God only
Just,
knows.
just because of the earlier discussions, did you have to explain to the neighborhood that they were going to be there?
well, it's more or less on campus, so
Okay,
it's not too
okay.
bad. But it's a very small cathedral city in London, and the whole city just works around the university.
Yeah.
But the town and gown issue is important. In the UK, we call it town and gown. There's a genuine conflict between the universities and the city for resources, for lots of different things, in terms of antisocial behaviour, etc., etc. And in places like, I don't want to name names, but in some of the very, very top institutions in the UK, which you've all heard of, Oxford, Cambridge, there's a massive resentment from the local population for the sort of privileged student class.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, even though they don't realize how much, also the local community has, to gain from the presence of a university, but not through the...
No, they resent the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Because as a country...
Most of them are mostly old students.
Yeah,
We've
we've got a class system for thousands of years which we haven't got over yet, so there's a barrier there.
So, is there anything you can add to the idea of community? I mean, where do you invest in for that concept of community?
It's very interesting in that, as I said, every city needs our product. I don't care where it is, and it doesn't matter about the ranking of the university because the newer universities have got a bigger need than the old established universities. So we don't care about the international ranking and the Sunday Times ranking. We really don't care.
There's a shortage.
Yeah, there's a massive shortage. And if you are an Indian student or a Chinese student, you are not going to get into Oxford, Cambridge, Delft. You're going to go to a lesser ranked university town, somewhere that speaks English, that delivers a good programme, and you get the experience of living abroad. And that's where the biggest growth in demand has come from.
What do you put in your 1,300 units complex that makes it more than just a magazine for sleeping?
Well, part of the reason why our buildings are so big is because we need to provide services. We need to make sure that there are amenity spaces, there are common areas, that there are events going on, and that we've got a presence in that building, on that site, 24/7.
Yeah.
So your daughter comes to stay with me.
Yeah.
I need to make sure my employer, my employees are there 24/7 looking after her.
Okay.
And there are issues to deal with, and we think we're very good at it.
Okay.
That's why we're there.
Okay.
So. But if we had a small building of 200 rooms, then we'd have to put the rent up because we still need the same number of staff.
Okay. What's your ideal number?
500.
500. We're up from 300 to 500.
But that's an economic thing.
Yeah, I understand the point. Okay, can I ask Christina to come forward? Christina, we already met her this morning. Did you have a good conversation during lunch with some people? Good. Yes. Yeah.
I think we do. Am I supposed to hold this like that?
Yeah, that's
think so.
best. So, yeah.
Where shall I sit?
Paper.
Just, you can sit over here.
That's okay, I can do like this.
Yeah. So, tell me who you are.
Okay, can you
And-
hear me?
I can hear. Well, as long as you
Can
keep
you
that
hear
in
me?
front. Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
We can
Ready?
hear you.
Thank you. I'm Cristina Garcia Peri. I come from Spain and I'm head of business development for a company called Azora. And at Azora, we manage and own the largest student housing portfolio in Spain. We have 8,000 beds right now, all of them in Spain. I have a couple of slides. I don't know who is. Yeah.
Yes,
So if you
it's
can
there.
put on the
There.
next slide.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think one of the things we focus very much on is our university partners. I think a lot has been said about the importance of universities for the city and the importance of the city for the university. I think we try to play a strategic role with our university partners. And we proud ourselves of having worked for many, many years with the leading universities in Spain. Universidad Autónoma de Madrid, which is, going back to rankings, I think someone spoke about rankings, is the highest ranked university in this Shanghai ranking, which I don't know how good it is, but it's one that,
But it is.
it's one of the rankings. And it's the highest ranked university in Spain, in between number 50 and 70, which is one of the things I'll talk about. But we've been working for them for over 10 years now, and we run 765 beds on their campus. We also have been working for 15 years almost with the University of the Basque Country. And we developed the first campus, the first residence, 220 beds in 1999, and the last one we developed in 2012. In Catalonia, where we have most of our portfolio, although we have residences all over Spain, also we've been working since 1994 with the University Polytechnic of Catalonia, and we've built all their student accommodation in each of their campuses. Now, the interesting thing is that these are all concessions, meaning these were all competitive, open auction processes where we had to compete with other operators or with other parties providing or offering to build and run the accommodation. And I think the fact that we've consistently won these auctions and we continue to work with them means that we must be doing something right.
What are you doing right?
Well,
What is the most important aspect of your business model that makes you so successful?
I think it's our partnership with the university.
Okay.
In the sense that we believe, and of course, the success of a university is dependent on many, many aspects. I'm just going to focus on what I think a student accommodation does for the university. By no means I mean that's the most important thing, but what does a student accommodation do? And just before I answer your question, another interesting thing is most of our students are Spanish people that go from outside their cities to the leading universities in Spain. I think on average we have 25% of foreign students in our houses, which is different from other models. And I think what we do right is, by providing affordable accommodation, we allow these universities to attract, first of all, talent from at least all over Spain. And as I said, 75% of our students come from Spain, from other cities. There is a lot of research about how good accommodation improves academic performance and certainly academic or retention by the university. We are now expanding into other parts of the world like Poland or Latin America, and you see that one of the big issues of the universities is actually to increase retention of students because they are in living conditions which really does not allow them to focus on the academics. So that's the first thing we do, and I think with that we're really building the core activity of the university. Then in all our houses...
Sorry to interrupt you. Who pays the rent? Does the university?
The students.
The students pay the rent. So the role of the university
The university gives us the land.
Okay, that's all they do.
For free, and in return we give them the house for free after 50 years. Okay. So our houses after 50 years belong to the university, and they will then open a new tender for another 50 years.
I hope the city of Amsterdam is listening right now. Bob?
Ed,
Yes, you are listening. Good. Go ahead.
I tell you, the key for our model to work, and we've built these properties over the last 20 years through the boom, the real estate boom in Spain, was the fact that we had access to the land for free. Okay. Otherwise, we would have never been able to build affordable. And it's important affordable.
So, interesting story in Holland is you pay for the land here, but then they subsidize the amount you have to pay more because the land is so pricey. So in the end, you're turning around public money in the deal. But that's just a side note. Yeah. Go ahead.
The second thing we do is we provide the Spanish universities the opportunity to attract researchers, visiting professors, which again, if you don't have accommodation, it's very, very difficult. And then the last thing, and this is quite new in Spain, is by having good, affordable accommodation, you can offer executive education and summer programs. I mean, if you go now to the US, and probably your daughter has looked at it, the amount of summer programs that all the leading universities offer are amazing, and those are extremely expensive. And if you look at the revenue generation of a university like Harvard, from undergrad, bachelor, they would generate, you know, and that's maybe 80% of the student population, they will generate 20% of the revenues. And 80% of the revenues will come from executive education, summer programs, and corporate education.
Okay.
And I think the fact that they can generate so much money with those programs allows them to then to have research, to fund research, and to continue to build on their academic excellence. And I think Europe is lacking that to some extent. Certainly Spain is lacking that.
It is. Harvard, for example, have hired our residents in Madrid this July to run a program there, which is fantastic for everyone. Fantastic for Madrid.
Yeah.
Not very good for the Spanish guys who work for me because they don't like to work in summer, but apart from that, it's a good deal.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your return on your investment? I mean, that's kind of a percentage that we love to hear.
That is confidential information.
Okay, yeah. You say higher, lower?
It's
8%?
It's higher than that.
Okay, that's
It has to be.
all.
When
It's
you
higher than
talk
that.
about the initial return.
Yeah.
So if you build a building in Madrid or Amsterdam, initially you get 6%, but with inflation your rents will go up, but your
Okay.
costs won't go up by the same amount. So in 10 years' time, you'll have a running yield of double digits plus.
So it's, but
Unless you've got a point system which doesn't allow you
Okay.
to put the rents up. It's just,
But bear in mind that, you know, it's interesting. We get the land for free, but we also agree on the terms of how much we're going to charge with the university, because again, the university wants this to be affordable for their use, okay? And so
but it's still
really
an index-linked return.
yes,
So-
no, definitely.
So
but
if
there
you're a
is
pension fund and you get an index, CPI return
Yeah.
on your investment, that's good.
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, so we think
It would
that
be a model that you could work with as well.
We run the same model in Spain.
Okay.
in fact,
N-
yeah,
not
we,
as
we know
successfully
each
as you.
other. But so just to finalize, trying to answer your question
Yes,
on
please.
returns.
Yeah.
But I think that the fact that we become a strategic partner with leading universities, and there, Spain is different. I mean, that was a famous phrase at some point, right? Spain is different. Yeah. But Spain is different from the UK in the sense that there's only so many universities you would want to work with, because there's only so many universities that can become leading universities and really have a place in the academic world. And so by working closely and choosing the leading ones, we think we've built barriers to entry, and therefore we are protecting the returns for our shareholders.
Spain is missing out, though. Half of Latin America should be studying in Spain, but they all go to America.
They'll go to,
The
because
language advantage is massive.
geographically, they're increasingly coming for graduate programs. That's certainly there's only a certain amount of people in Latin America that can travel abroad. You have there, the middle class is still relatively small. So what you have is like the top class is wealthy enough to go to the US, which is closer, better communicated, and let's face it, has many more good universities than Spain. So.
Okay, go ahead, your question.
Yeah, you said something about the university giving you land, but is that land close to campus or close to the city?
It's on the campus.
It's either on campus or, for example, in Madrid, Universidad Autónoma is a campus outside the city.
Yeah.
Still 10 minutes by public transportation. But in Barcelona, the Universidad Politécnica is in Barcelona. But they have land all over the city.
Yeah. But the example of Madrid, of course, being 10 minutes from town, that the perception of studying in Madrid should be, sometimes they give you land and they push you out of the city.
The other university, which is Complutense, which is where you have your beautiful property.
Thank you.
It is beautiful.
Enough. We're not here to exchange compliments.
That is all in the city, pretty
Okay.
much closer.
She talked about communities, community creation. How is that part of your business model?
Very much so. I mean, we have 24/7 help for our students. Our students are mainly first and second year, so they're very young, 18 to 20 years old. We do welcome parties. We have a corporate program that we run from our headquarters of activities Like there will be a charity of the year, there will be a football league in between our residences where we have more than one. We will organize, for example, we have in Barcelona one residence very close to the Faculty of Architecture. We will have a special desk with a special lights, and we will organize tutoring with the university. The university will offer tutoring on specific subjects for the students. We'll have a Halloween party.
And what's your business objective with all those extra activities?
Well, what we want is, on the one hand, is to make our accommodation the first choice for the students of that university. And most of the times, we don't have to market ourselves. You know, we're 100% fill because the university will recommend our accommodation. And the second objective is because we want the students to stay more than 1 or 2 years. We want them to stay for 4 years. And so someone told me a couple of years ago something, said, well, if you make a friend on your first year of university, you go and rent a flat. But if you make 12 friends, unless you go to Nomad, maybe, it's difficult to go with 12 friends, so you would stay.
Thank you.
Make one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to make one comment because you say something about creating a community of students, but do you merge them with, you know, other groups in the city? Because sometimes it's interesting to socialize with your peers, but I think you know, the benefit of being in a city could also be that you
We will also help them, say, if our houses are in Barcelona, but even the ones that are on campus, cultural activities or activities that are not only related with the university or with themselves having fun, but also with the city. But you know, there's also a balance between having their schedule. I mean, they will only want to do so much all together. They also, you know, they are small adults.
Yeah, I say this because the city will you know, they try to engage these students in, you know, with their infrastructure. They want them to stay. They want them to have their, you know, fall in love. It was said before, have their first child there, buy their first house there, to make sure they have an economic connection, you know, in the long term, and not just for the time they're there.
Okay, so the next guest on this table is talking about cities, is the Commissioner of Regional Planning of the city of Turin. That's Mr. Russo.
Yes,
Here you are. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is your seat. No introduction, the city of Torino,
Yeah.
with the most beautiful car factory in the world.
Yeah, I hope.
No, it's true. I mean, that's the
Okay.
one with
It
the
is, yes.
with the cars on the rooftop. You know, that they try out the cars on the rooftop of the
Yes.
of the
It was
factory.
the factory, Lingotto factory.
Lingotto
It was
factory.
nice.
Right, yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stefano Russo. I am the cabinet member in charge of the city council about the urban planning and strategic planning of the town. I am really happy to be invited as a hosting city in Amsterdam, talking about Turin and talking about this kind of a fundamental topic, which is the opportunity provided in a developing and post-industrial city derived by the university and residential also for university. Our city, we have
Up there.
some slides.
You can walk a little bit
Yeah.
in front, and then you can see your slides.
We can move to the number. It's the best way. Okay, thank you. For those of you that didn't know where is Turin, Turin is thank you, is the northwest of Italy. In the municipality, we have almost 1 million inhabitants, and this is the big number we have to start when talking about university importance. 100,000. Among these, 20,000 are from other Italian regions, and 10,000 inside this number are foreign. In Turin, we have two very important university. One is the Polytechnic of Turin, which is my university because I am a researcher there, not only the cabinet member, and which is one of in the Shanghai ranking university for engineering, is in the top 75 university in the world. And the second one is the University of Torino, which is the oldest, and the proportion are 70,000 students in the university and 30,000 students in the technical university, the Polytechnic of Turin. And the only trend we can highlight, for example, in the last recent year, is the growing of students coming from outside of Torino. Torino has a stronger tradition for industry. We was the capital of the industry in Italy for the Fiat presence, but in the middle of 70s, we had the starting of the decrease and the plating of such kind of opportunity, and therefore we have a changing also in the thinking about the future of the town. And in our opinion, university in general is one of the main backbone for the future development, because in my opinion, the best way is to integrate the public administration, the university, and of course to drive and to draw policies which are strictly integrated. We have several factors that help us.
Sorry to.
Yeah.
Is it easy to integrate with the university?
Yeah.
Are they organizations that fit together well, or are they independent of each other?
We have a good, instead of other Italian institutions in Turin, we have a good
That's why I was
tradition.
asking. Yeah.
We have a good tradition of integration and synergy about the policies, because for several factors. The main for us, of course, is to have good university, because all the research, all the topics, all the speech highlight that the main thing to use, in a certain sense, the university for development is to have good university in terms of reputation, scientific reputation, and attractiveness for foreign students and from foreign in the sense of from the region. And the second is to have a city which fit with the development of a modern campus. And fitting is provided by urban planning, by individuating correctly the area where to develop incubator for enterprises or to transfer for technology, brownfield to be converted not in commercial or in the residential but in the university sites, and to integrate also all the other kind of policies, cultural policies, nightlife, public transportation. So we have to think about the development of the city, taking into account which is that the university is not only a host, but is a driver of the development of the city. And we have to move the policies, all the policies, around this backbone. This is, in my opinion, the key for the successful policies for a modern city, or in particular for a city like Turin, which has a lot of brownfield derived by the past industrial, and a lot of problem of pollution, and therefore we have to evaluate correctly, which is the key. And to build the community, it is fundamental to make synergy between sorry.
Sorry. I'm very sure that you have the same problem that we have, that public funds are very limited right now. So with all your ambitions that you that are very positive, of course, that how are you able to create the movement that you need to achieve what you just described?
Probably the season of public funding is finished, definitely. And in particular in the southern countries of Europe, in particular in Italy, because we have a huge public debt with no opportunity to take public money to supply such kind of policies. So the responsibility of the policy, of the politicians and the institution is to facilitate the track for private investment and to govern such kind of opportunity. When I talk with an investor, everybody told me that, especially for foreign investors, have a very bad image of Italy because a lot of laws, a lot of Latin approach to the problems. And so the problem now is to reconstruct reputation also for publics, also for institutions. And that reputation for private investment is to provide correct timing for investment, because the main problem is the timing. And to have a clear idea, to have a good project for investment, but to provide insurance for private companies that when from the idea to the permit to build for the building and for the there is a definite time. That is the main problem for Italian institutions in general, and I think that it could be the key for the future development.
What time would you what would your timing be for such in between the first initiative and start of construction?
Depends. Here in the audience there is some good experience here in Turin because we was the first experience in that sense because traditionally in Italy, in particular in Piemonte region in Turin, we have only public supply hosting students. So the first time it is located in Turin with Caraglio residence, and I am not able to provide the correct answer. The question should be provided to the private owner.
Okay.
They told us that they are very happy. Few here. Okay.
A few years.
Few here. Yes.
I
But
also have an idea if you have some free land available.
But this is another kind of
Is that a model for
problem
you?
because there is a philosophy
Yeah.
in about free land employment, in particular inside towns. We prefer to use brownfield instead of greenfield because the university and also the residentials one are good opportunity to reuse the city, to renewal the city, more than occupy free land. And therefore our policy is more focused on this kind of reuse of empty buildings or brownfield.
Do you mind free brownfield?
Would you? No, not at all. In fact, some of the latest investments we're doing in Spain is not so much brownfield, it's not reconverting, but it's a big refurbishment of old properties. But would you consider giving a concession on such property? So imagine you have a project where someone like us will come and say, okay, we'll pay X amount to use this property, we'll invest another amount, and we'll operate it for 50 years. And for 50 years, all the profits and revenues from that investment will be us. But after 50 years, that brand new building, and we will commit to keep it to certain standards, will be again owned by the city of Turin, and you can again. Would you consider something like that?
Yes, we use such kind of approach for several renewal projects because which is we name project financing, for example, which is another kind of opportunity where we do, yes. And now we have several areas, both quite near, because the structure of the university is very widespread in the city. And therefore, in the sense of the first presentation, which is the meaning of campus. The campus is could have different definition, and because we have different tradition for medicine, for engineering, for law, and therefore it's difficult to have a univoc approach. And we are a very lucky experience in order to integrate university inside the town, because the students are seems us very happy to share also the culture of Turin, to share the nightlife of Turin, and provide also a reversal in the general aging of the average age of the population inside the town.
You also heard the adversity today about point systems, regulations. Do you have anything like that in Torino? And if you have, are you willing to accept a more liberal approach to development?
But in my opinion, the best way is to try and to have a specific project instead of general sentences that are very politically correct, but not ever followed by real action.
Right.
And what we can do is to enhance the process for authorization, because as you know, Italy is a natural world heritage. So wherever you take something from one place to another place, you have a lot of problem in terms of authorization, cultural heritage, especially in the center of the town. And therefore, the problem is to combine on a unique table all the stakeholders around. That is the main duty that, in my opinion, the city, municipality should do in order to attract the capital from abroad. Therefore, we have different types of opportunity, both for development and both for reuse of empty building. And so what we can do is to stress all the institutions near the city and around the city that have to put authorization procedure in order to provide a correct schedule for investment.
Okay.
And we have no problem regarding the market, the potential market, because
That's clear. Yeah.
yes, the number speaks.
Yeah.
And the international ranking of our university speaks, and the growing of the foreign attraction speaks. In my opinion, one of the future development could be to differentiate the opportunity for students, because we talk about students, but students are very different community, and they have different needs because they have different culture, different background in terms of economics, and feeling with the city. We have it's totally different to speak about a bachelor student respect a PhD or post-PhD students, because we have the needs, for example, for post-PhD of big houses for families, for children, and it's totally different approach. So we have, in my opinion, a huge opportunity and several potentials that could be increased and could be put one together the other in order to share such kind also of economic opportunity.
Are you scared of investing in Torino?
Terrified.
Yes?
Then
Why?
When you're a private investor, what you need from the city or from anywhere is for them to say, here's an office block, it's 10,000 square meters, we don't want it anymore, give us some money. So we'll give them €5 million, whatever we think it's worth, and you can start building it out in 3 months' time. Yeah. And in 18 months' time, it's finished. So we've still got a 2-year horizon before we get any revenue. Yeah. We spew €30 million, we've got an investment, everybody's happy. What we don't want to do is go to meetings with the heritage guy, go to a meeting with the architect guy. We're not interested in that. We just want to get the money away.
Can you help him?
I try. I can try because, in my opinion, this is one of the main duty of the politicians. Is to simplify the rules.
Except for Torino, everybody everywhere else, they do a very horrible job at that. So,
but in my opinion, it could be. It depends from the local situation. It depends from also the local attractiveness of the university. Because I have to say a not politically correct sentence. Not each university is the same. Not each city is the same. And in my opinion, it is important for a private investor to focus in Italy, which is one of my favorite wonderful country. What are the main cities, the main university in which to concentrate the investment, and in order to share also with the local situation, because it's also very different. We have in Italy more than 70 faculties in engineering.
But stick with Torino. Torino, you made a good case for Torino.
Yes, it could be a good case for Torino. I hope to guest you and to share what are our opportunities in the next future.
We won't come unless you say, there's a building, 10,000 square meters, you can start in January, and it's going to cost you X million euros. Because we haven't got 2 years, 3 years. We have investors, they need to get the money out of the door and they need to get a return. And student housing is not a quick return. It takes you 2 years between buying the site and getting the first students moved in.
Do you mind if there's a racetrack on the roof?
Even better.
Okay,
even better.
Is it possible?
We can try. We can try.
Okay.
Because I am usual, it is not correct to promise something that is not possible.
That's
so what I can say that we have the same mentality, we have the same focus, and the problem is to fit the regulation, the policy, and the needs of private investment. But what I can say is that when you approach, it is not necessary because it's a very, its knowledge is very high, but when you approach to a country or another kind of, with such kind of approach, it is quite important to differentiate. There is not one univoc way in order to approach such kind of...
But I think, maybe because I come from Spain, which is Latin rather than...
Latin approach to the general rules.
I mean, in Spain, when we started 20 years ago, every transaction took many, many months of speaking with the city, of speaking with the university. Even now, every transaction, every investment we do takes a lot of time. I think sometimes in the UK or the US, you know, you're spoiled because everything works so fast and so efficiently. But
I wish.
No.
but I think to me, the fact of having someone like you sitting at this table already means that at least there is a will to make things work.
That's a fact.
I
And
think
that's very
that
important.
the risk is acceptable for the investment.
Okay.
Because, of course, when I make an investment, somebody put a risk. And such kind of risk is acceptable now, in that moment, in some places. Not ever, and not in every place. But somewhere, of course, in Turin, of course, but not only probably in Turin, there is some particular condition in which the risk for investment is acceptable. The risk linked to the timing, and linked to the certainty about the answer to the question to provide such kind of...
I think he says yes to that invitation. I think he says it. So a little lie is okay. So, any questions from the room? Bob. Bob, up there. There's a microphone coming your way.
Is there any appetite from investors for a mixed program of, let's say, normal residential for starters and student housing? For example, the old Casa 400 is now refurbished by Bouwinvest and residential development added to it. So that's the question.
There is an appetite. I mean, Bouwfund are doing it all over Europe. So there is an appetite for mixed-use schemes. My particular fund, I would find it quite difficult because I target students, but there is an appetite everywhere if you can provide an opportunity that's deliverable within a reasonable time frame and it gives a return. There's a wall of capital out there. There's so much money looking to get spent and they don't know where to put it. They're not going to, you're not going to buy government bonds and get 2% if you're lucky. You know, if you can get into residential property and get net initials of 6, that's a great return. But they're not going to sit there for 2 years and wait for the politicians to decide it's a good idea and what colour the bathrooms are going to be. There's no way they're going to do that.
Okay.
So
Your point is clear.
I would agree with that. I think the way we look at it, our product is very much designed for students. But there is a continuum between what a student needs, what young professionals need, what even young couples need. And a lot of those people are not going to want to buy a house immediately because there's going to be much more mobility. So making smaller units, sort of a small 20, 30 square meter flats available in cities, in important cities, where normally there is a university, we think there's definitely, that makes a lot of sense, and that there will be a lot of money interested in something like that. That would combine the two.
Yeah, and could even spread the risk for in the future and the exit afterwards.
Certainly, because they're a bit different products. I mean, they are related, but...
Anybody else? Questions?
Hi, but just first of all, congratulations to whomever organized this specific panel, because the first time I got involved in student housing, I was still a student. It was 2007. I was talking to this gentleman. Then I met Bob in 2009, and you perfectly represent what's the problem with student housing in Europe now. You have the Spanish model, which it's kind of project financing. You get the land for free, but then you don't own the building. You have the English model, it's completely private, and you don't want to talk to politicians. And you have the Italian model that will never work out. I disagree.
He doesn't agree. He doesn't agree.
No, I'm Italian, and honestly, I can tell you why. Because it's... No, in the sense that more people you put around the table, and more difficult it is to gather a decision. And what these guys want is to save time. So they want less people around the table, and this is what will never work. It's just missing the Swedish gentleman that is helping a student to rent out during the day, because in Sweden they have an even more complicated way of doing it, in which they do it all in a public way. So my question, or my opinion, but also my question is, who is going to be the smartest around Europe who is going to find a different model again, but probably will work all over. Because it's sure the English one will never work in Italy, and the Italian will never work in Sweden, and the Swedish one, I'm still curious to know how it works there. and maybe the question is, what do you think it could be this different way, fourth way, or I don't know, maybe the American way, I don't know. But which could be the way of making it all work? Because otherwise you will never have yet, and honestly, I started looking at it, it was 2007, just from a starting point of view, you will never have a European operator. We don't have. You have a French model we mentioned today. They have a lot of flats, a lot of spaces, a lot of beds, but it's in France. Ask them to go to Belgium, which is the same language. It's going to cost them so much time and money. It's going to be super complicated. So
by the way, that was a very...
Question is, if you think there is a new model, or if Bob, you could be more negotiating, or if Italian, you could, be less people.
The statement of Belgium was very politically incorrect.
They don't speak French.
They speak French and Flemish over there.
Andre, I honestly...
You see how complicated it is, Europe?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I honestly think each project will have to be looked at individually. And if, as an investor, like you said, what works in Torino may not work in Milan. So you've got to look at each project individually, which is why I keep going on about time and energy, because we don't have any of that. We've got money, that's what we've got, and we want to get rid of it. Now, we don't care, it's a 50-year concession in Madrid, or it's buying a listed building in Turin. We really don't care. We just want somebody who's got the autonomy. And that's why, as an Englishman, I hate saying this, but the French are quite good, because their mayor decides what goes. So if you can get to the mayor, and he likes the idea, it will happen.
But Bob, I think what you're saying is, and that's much more important, that you want the certainty.
Yeah.
It's not about the time.
Yeah.
It can take 5 years, but as long as you wait, as it is 5 years and not 6 or 7 or 8 years, because that makes it unpredictable.
Yeah. But if one of my guys is spending 5 years negotiating with a council in some city, he could have gone to another city and done 4 deals.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity cost associated with that.
But I think, we are currently working on projects in Poland, in Germany, and in Italy. So I think there is hope.
Yeah.
There is hope.
And we like to keep the myth that things are going smoothly in this country or in America, which isn't true either, I can promise you that. Any other question? One over there.
I'm Sophie, I'm from Switzerland. We're working on a startup company, and the question I had was, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about communities and how diversity can help a community, and how grouping not only students but startups and entrepreneurs together will create that community. What are the disadvantages of grouping together, like you said, Bob, 1,300 like-minded students? Surely there are sociological problems that come from grouping so many like-minded students together. And how do you avoid those problems?
It's not easy. Well, that particular scheme I was talking about, we've got 1,329 18-year-olds who've never been away from home. So because they're Anglo-Saxons, the Northern European students, they just, for the first month away, they just want to drink themselves stupid.
Yeah. Sounds like a great reality show you're building.
Yeah. So in terms of what happens is they all go away from home, they have a great time, lots of parties, and all of a sudden a month later, we call it freshers' flu. They all get ill, mum and dad come, so on, and then they settle down and they start to work. And within that 1,329 students, different communities, they emerge, and they form their own little cliques and their own little societies. And each year's different, and each cohort's different, but we try and integrate. We worked out in that particular residence, there are 14 nationalities, 14 different nationalities, and we try and spread them round. And as I said, there are social problems, but after, I would say, 2 months, we've got a real community there, and they all look after each other, and it's fantastic. It really is quite fantastic to see how it evolves. And part of our job is to make sure that community functions properly. The French team were talking about shared apartments, and we have that. And you can have a massive argument about who eats the cheese. And it can escalate to something crazy. And if you're a vegetarian and you're sharing an apartment with people who are not vegetarians, there are issues like that need to be resolved. And we as a business are a stepping stone between mum and dad and independent life. And unfortunately, in the UK, most of our 18-year-olds are not ready for independent life, and we provide that stepping stone.
Not only in the UK.
Because it's a
Change the
typical
cycle.
Italian habit that young people still remain at home, and we have the problem. In this particular last 2-3 years, there is also changing in the habit of the young people, that especially at the end of the primary school, secondary school, when they have to choose the university sites. But we usually have young people that move outside from the family only for the university. But it could be a good opportunity. Another kind of opportunity is to reduce the number of universities. This is a national policy. It is not a local policy. And in my opinion, one of the key actors of the European Union, European institution, is to enhance universities and countries that should be reduce the size and to merge the human and economic resources, because the problem of competition of Europe is not inside the Europe. I disagree, respect what has been said just before for my Italian colleague. The problem for Europe is to have a competition with China, with Australia, with Brazil, with the United States. So we have to changing also our thinking in terms of European citizens, because probably European Union and European institutions should be enhanced and forced also by incentives, economic incentives, or the re-aggregation of the university, and to provide hubs in different places of the Europe, and to share such kind of experience.
So there is a future for a pan-European.
Yes, in my opinion,
approach.
yes, because we have to differentiate the university. High skilled, very high reputation research university, which attract some specific the upper part of the pyramids of the students that usually has different needs, different approach, and the wide part of the student that could follow teaching university with lower level, and to have a policy in terms of public funding for research, and also other kind of policies, but is a more general sentence that, in my opinion, could be the good option for the new action plan in the next year. So the municipality and the local government could enhance such kind of strategy. But the problem of the strategy is, in my opinion, one of the continental problem of strategy, not local or national strategy.
All right.
If
Agreed.
I'm sorry.
She agreed.
Yeah, fully.
I mean, I know what I'm going to say is controversial, but I think particularly if you think of international students, and I know each country is different, and you know, in Europe we are more aware than anyone about the differences in between countries, but I don't see why we could not get a model that is suitable for international students. Like you have international travelers, of business travelers, and you have hotel chains all over the world, with a model that is well researched, that is targeted to the business traveler, whether he's or she is Spanish, Dutch, or American. I think there are more commonalities among international students than what we think.
Yeah, certainly accommodating the mobility that's already there. Because you asked previously, what's the best place to study? I think we can brand the whole, all of Europe and all of the highlights, in terms of the mobility of students. They could go semesters to different countries.
There's a huge
and that's a chain of hotels.
The mayor of London, BJ, he went to China, and I don't know if you showed it on your television. He stood there in the Chinese parliament and said, we will take as many students as you've got. If they're bright enough to get into our universities, we want them all. Send us to us. That was fantastic. I went and bought some shares. It was just because there's hundreds of thousands of Chinese students want to come and study in Europe. Our universities, our cities need to go and market themselves to them.
Exactly. That was pretty bad at that.
And offer that
But
hospitality feeling that you need to provide
Yeah,
to
also the
them.
diversity of
Yes.
these countries. Yeah.
we have to pay attention, in my opinion, about these foreign policies capting of students, because the international reputation should be maintained by taking only the top level students, not huge amounts. So we have to balance the necessity of to grow student population and to income students coming from abroad with the needs to maintain the high reputation of European university, and not to focus only for money, not only to focus on numbers, but also for, because it's all, of course, is a problem of balance between the needs to select and to attract. Our schedule should be, our objective should be to attract the high skilled, which is not ever possible. For example, but it is, we are growing such kind of network, and also between the university in Europe, and this could be also a problem of homogenization between areas. We have to change our feeling about this kind of approach. And the politicians should, of course, attract everybody, but university and the public system should select,
Okay.
which is the way to maintain the high standard reputation for to attract in the future.
Yeah.
There is a timing issue,
Okay.
right? And I know if we're getting to the European affairs, we can go on until 12 o'clock. So I guess to put it all together is that we're going to go for high quality. We need to give them experience, train them from the home. It needs to be pan-European. So I think on this table we developed the concept of the Club Med for student housing, right? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.